Further, on two occasions, that is in March and May of last year, the MPC had to be advanced to take preemptive action to safeguard the economy from the ravages of the pandemic. Over this period, the Reserve Bank has taken more than 100 measures to proactively and decisively respond to the unprecedented crisis. While doing so, we have not been a prisoner of any rule book. We have not hesitated to take new and unconventional measures to keep the financial markets functioning and the market sentiments positive, provide liquidity to targeted sectors and institutions, and leverage on digital technologies to reach out to individuals and businesses. Thus, although the pandemic protocols do us part, technology ties us together. In this backdrop, the MPC met on 6th, 7th and 8th October. Based on an assessment of the evolving macroeconomic and financial conditions and the outlook, the MPC voted unanimously to maintain status quo with regard to the policy repo rate and by a majority of 5-1 to retain the accommodative policy stance. Consequently, the policy repo rate remains unchanged at 4% and the stance remains accommodative as long as necessary to revive and sustain growth on a durable basis and continue to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on the economy while ensuring that inflation remains within the target going forward. The marginal standing facility, that is MSF rate, and the bank rate remain unchanged at 4.25%. The reverse repo rate also remains unchanged at 3.35%. With the worst of the second wave behind us and substantial pickup in COVID-19 vaccination giving greater confidence to open up and normalize economic activity, the recovery of the Indian economy is gaining traction. While vaccine reach is real fault line in the current global recovery, India is in a much better place today than at the time of the last MPC meeting. Growth impulses seem to be strengthening and we derive comfort from the fact that the inflation trajectory is turning out to be more favorable than anticipated. In spite of global headwinds, we hope to emerge from the storm and sail towards normal times, steered by the underlying resilience of the macroeconomic fundamentals of the Indian economy. Let me now give a brief overview of the MPC's rationale for the pause on policy rate and the accommodative stance. The MPC noted that economic activity over the last 2 months has broadly evolved in consonance with the MPC's August assessment and the outlook. CPI inflation during July-August has also turned out to be lower than anticipated. The actual outturn of real GDP growth in the first quarter at 20.1% was close to, albeit a little below the MPC's forecast of 21.4%. High-frequency indicators for the second quarter of this year suggest that economic activity has gained momentum supported by ebbing of infections, the robust pace of vaccination, expected record Kharif food grain production, government's focus on capital expenditure, benign monetary and financial conditions, and buoyant external demand. Consumer price inflation softened during July-August, moving back into the tolerance band with an easing of food inflation, corroborating the MPC's assessment of the spike in inflation in May as transitory. Improvement in monsoon in September, the expected Kharif record production, adequate buffer stock of food grains, and lower seasonal pickup in vegetable prices are likely to keep food price pressures muted. Core inflation, however, remains sticky. Elevated global crude oil prices and other commodity prices combined with acute shortage of key industrial components and high logistics costs are adding to input cost pressures. Pass-through to output prices has, however, been restrained by weak demand conditions. The evolving situation requires close vigilance. Overall, aggregate demand is improving, but slack still remains. Output is still below pre-pandemic level, and the recovery remains uneven and dependent upon continued policy support. Contact-intensive services, which contribute about 40% of economic activity in India, are still lagging. Supply side and cost push pressures are impinging upon inflation, and these are expected to ameliorate with the ongoing normalization of the supply chains. Efforts to contain cost push pressures through a calibrated reversal of indirect taxes on fuel could contribute to a more sustained lowering of inflation and an anchoring of inflation expectations. Against this backdrop, the MPC decided to retain the prevailing repo rate at 4% and continue with the accommodative stance as stated in the last MPC statement. I would now like to provide an assessment of the growth and inflation scenario. Let me first focus on growth. According to release of National Statistical Office on 31st August, real GDP growth for first quarter of this financial year, at 20.1% exhibited resilience of the economy in the face of the destructive impact, especially in the face of the destructive impact of the second wave of COVID-19. Almost all components of GDP registered year-on-year growth despite a sharp loss of momentum due to the second wave. Recovery in aggregate demand gathered pace in August-September. This is reflected in high-frequency indicators, namely railway freight traffic, port cargo, cement production, electricity demand, e-way bills, GST and toll collections. The ebbing of infections together with improving consumer confidence has been supporting private consumption. The pent-up demand and the festival season should give further fillip to urban demand in the second half of current financial year. Rural demand is expected to get impetus from continued resilience of agricultural sector and record production of kharif food grains in 21-22 as per the first advance estimates. The improved level in reservoirs and early announcement of the minimum support prices for Rabi crops boost the prospects for Rabi production. The support to aggregate demand from government consumption is also gathering pace. Improvement in government capex together with congenial financial conditions could bring about an upturn in the much awaited virtuous investment cycle. Pickup in import of capital goods and cement production point towards some revival in investment activity. According to our survey results, capacity utilization in the manufacturing sector, which declined sharply in the first quarter of 21-22 under the second wave, is assessed to have recovered in the second quarter, and further improvement is expected in the ensuing quarters. Critical support to aggregate demand also came from exports, which remained in excess of $30 billion for the seventh consecutive month in September 21, reflecting strong global demand and policy support. This augurs well for meeting our export target of $400 billion during the current financial year, that is 21-22. Recovery in services sector is also gaining traction. Gradual pickup in contact intensive services together with strong performance of technology driven sectors are likely to support the momentum. Impact of elevated input costs on profit margins, potential global financial and commodity markets volatility, and a resurgence of COVID-19 infections, however, impart downside risks to the growth outlook. Taking all these factors into consideration, Taking all these factors into consideration, the projection for real GDP growth is retained at 9.5% for the current year, that is 21-22, and this consists of 7.9% in Q2, 6.8% in Q3, and 6.1% in Q4 of 21-22. Real GDP growth for Q1 of next financial year, that is 22-23, is projected at 17.2%. Let me now turn to inflation. Headline CPI inflation at 5.3% in August registered a moderation for the second consecutive month and a decline of 1 percentage point from its level in June 2021. The key driver of the disinflation has been the moderation in food inflation, even as fuel inflation eased up and CPI inflation excluding food and fuel, that is core inflation, remained elevated. Headline inflation continues to be significantly influenced by very high inflation in select items such as edible oils, petrol and diesel, LPG and medicines. On the other hand, a very low seasonal buildup in vegetable prices, decline in cereal prices, a sharp deflation in gold prices and muted housing inflation have helped to contain inflationary pressures. Going forward, several evolving factors provide comfort on the food price front. Its momentum is expected to remain muted in the near term. Cereal prices are expected to remain soft due to likely record Kharif food grains production and adequate, or rather more than adequate, buffer stocks. Vegetable prices, a major source of inflation volatility, have remained contained in the year so far with record production and supply side measures by the government. Unseasonal rains and adverse weather related events, if any, in the coming months are however upside risks to vegetable prices. Supply side measures by government for edible oils and pulses are helping to temper price pressures. However, an uptick in prices of edible oils is seen in the recent period. Overall, the CPI inflation momentum is moderating, which combined with favorable base effects in the coming months could bring about a substantial softening in inflation in the near term. Taking into consideration all these factors, CPI inflation is projected at, for the current year, the CPI inflation is projected at 5.3%, and the breakup for the quarter-wise breakup would be as follows. This 5.3 is for the full year, and quarterly projections I will now give. 5.1% in the second quarter, 4.5% in the third quarter, and 5.8% in the fourth quarter of 21-22, with risks broadly balanced. CPI inflation for Q1 of next financial year, that is 22-23, is projected at 5.2%. We are watchful of the evolving situation and remain committed to bring it closer to the target in a gradual and non-disruptive manner. I would now like to give some guidance and review the current liquidity and the financial market conditions and attempt to provide some forward guidance. At the current juncture, central banks across the world, let me repeat, at the current juncture, central banks across the world find themselves at crossroads. Diverging monetary policy stances are not being dictated by country groupings, but by country circumstances. Among the emerging market economies, that is EMEs, some are tightening monetary policy, others are undertaking further monetary stimulus, while a few are on a resolute pause. The countries that are tightening monetary policy are those which are facing inflation much above their upper tolerance bands and are also registering a strong rebound in growth above pre-pandemic levels, boosted mainly by commodity export earnings and positive spillovers from improvement in macroeconomic conditions in some advanced economies. Countries that are easing monetary policy through non-rate actions are rare few which have low consumer price inflation. And finally, countries which are on a resolute pause have inflation in the elevated zone but poor growth prospects or nascent recoveries that need further nurturing. In India, the MPC has maintained a pause and given time and state contingent forward guidance from time to time on maintaining accommodation. The conduct of monetary policy in India will continue to be oriented to our domestic circumstances and our assessment. Since the onset of the pandemic, the Reserve Bank has maintained ample surplus liquidity to support a speedy and durable economic recovery. The level of surplus liquidity in the banking system increased further during September 21, that is in the last month, with absorption under the fixed rate reverse repo, variable rate reverse repo, or what I call VRRR of 14 days, and fine-tuning operations under the liquidity adjustment facility, that is LAF, averaging 9 lakh crore, rupees 9 lakh crore per day against rupees 7 lakh crore during June to August this year. The surplus liquidity rose even further to a daily average of rupees 9.5 lakh crore in October so far, and that is the position up to 6th October. The potential liquidity overhang amounts to more than 13 lakh crore, 13 lakh crore. As the economy shows signs of emerging from the COVID-19 inflicted ravages, a near consensus view emerging among market participants and policymakers is that the liquidity conditions emanating from exceptional measures instituted during the crisis would need to evolve in sync with macroeconomic developments to preserve financial stability. This process has to be gradual, calibrated and non-disruptive while remaining supportive of the economic recovery. The Reserve Bank's secondary market GSEC acquisition program, that is GSAP, has been successful in addressing market concerns and anchoring yield expectations in the context of the large borrowing program of the government. Coupled with other liquidity measures, it facilitated congenial and orderly financing conditions and a conducive environment for the recovery. The total liquidity injected into the system during the first 6 months of the current financial year through open market operations including GSAP was rupees 2.37 lakh crore as against an injection of 3.1 lakh crore during the full financial year of 2021. So against the total of 3.1 lakh crore which was injected in the whole of last year, this year, in the first half, for the first 6 months, in the first half, 2.37 lakh crore has already been injected. Given the existing liquidity overhang, the absence of a need for additional borrowing under GST compensation and the expected expansion of liquidity in the system as government spending increases in line with budget estimates, the need for undertaking further GSAP operations at this juncture does not arise. The Reserve Bank, however, would remain in readiness to undertake GSAP as and when warranted by the liquidity conditions, and also continue to undertake and flexibly conduct other liquidity management operations including Operation Twist and regular open market operations, that is OMOs. With the resumption of normal liquidity operations since mid-January 2021, the 14-day variable rate reverse repo, that is the 14-day VRRR auctions, have been deployed as the main instrument under the liquidity management framework. Market appetite for VRRRs has been enthusiastic. Moreover, the higher remuneration which VRRR offers vis-a-vis the fixed rate reverse repo is also rendering the VRRR relatively attractive. Keeping in view the market feedback, it is proposed to undertake the 14-day VRRR auctions on a fortnightly basis in the following manner. Rupees 4 lakh crore today as already notified, rupees 4.5 lakh crore on October 22nd, rupees 5 lakh crore on November 3rd, rupees 5.5 lakh crore on November 18th, and rupees 6 lakh crore on December 3rd. Further, depending upon the evolving liquidity conditions, especially the quantum of capital flows, the pace of government expenditure and credit offtake, the RBI may also consider implementing 14-day VRR auctions with the RBI may also consider complementing the 14-day VRRR auctions with 28-day VRRR auctions in a similar calibrated fashion. The Reserve Bank also retains the flexibility to conduct fine-tuning operations of varying amounts as and when required. Even with all these operations, I repeat, even with all these operations, the liquidity absorbed under the fixed rate reverse repo would still be around rupees 2 to 3 lakh crore in the first week of December. Now let me pause here and just stress and highlight some of the key takeaways of what I have said. First, we are providing a calendar for liquidity, for the VRRR auctions alone, for the 14-day VRRR auctions alone. The calendar is only for that segment of our liquidity management. And the rest of it, that is whether it is fine-tuning or if and when we think of 28 days, they are not predetermined and they will depend on the evolving liquidity situation. That's the first point. Second point, the entire exercise is based on our assessment of the liquidity conditions and the outlook in consultation with market participants and other stakeholders of the economy. So it's not a unilateral action. There has been considerable amount of dialogue and discussion between the Reserve Bank and the market participants. Third, the entire exercise is optional. In fact, in a manner of speaking, in the VRRR, although V stands for variable, we could say that V would also represent voluntary. It's voluntary, it is optional, there is no compulsion on the banks to put any amount, a particular amount of liquidity under this window. Fourth, our entire approach is one of gradualism. We don't want suddenness, we don't want surprises, it's one of gradualism. And more so, we do realize that as we are approaching the shore, when the shore is so close, we don't want to rock the boat because we realize that there is a life, there is a journey beyond the shores. So we don't want surprises, it will be calibrated, it will be an approach of gradualism. And fifth and finally, I would like to sum up all these 4 points which I have said. Let there not be any concern about the adequacy of liquidity in the system to support economic activity or to support financial markets. Let me reiterate, as I just now said, let me reiterate and re-emphasize that VRRR auctions are primarily a tool for rebalancing liquidity as part of our liquidity management operations and should not be interpreted as a reversal of the accommodative monetary policy stance, of our accommodative policy stance. The Reserve Bank will ensure that there is adequate liquidity, as I just now mentioned. The Reserve Bank will ensure that there is adequate liquidity to support the process of economic recovery. The Reserve Bank will continue to support the market in ensuring an orderly completion of the borrowing program of the government. And further, our focus on orderly evolution of the yield curve as a public good also continues. Against this backdrop and based on our continuing assessment of the macroeconomic situation and financial market conditions, certain additional measures are also being announced today. These details The details of these measures are set out in the Statement on Developmental and Regulatory Policies, which forms the Part B of our monetary policy statement. And as you would be aware, a copy of my statement, the statement of the Monetary Policy Committee, including the Part B, which includes the announcements which I am going to make now, all that will be uploaded in the RBI website immediately after my address to you is over. Now let me now highlight on these additional measures very briefly. The first one relates to on-tap special long-term repo operations, that is SLTRO for small finance banks. A special 3-year long-term repo operations SLTRO of rupees 10,000 crore at the repo rate was introduced for small finance banks in May 2021. This facility is currently available till October 31st. Recognizing the need for continued support to small business units, micro and small industries and other unorganized sector entities, it has been decided to expand this facility till 31st December and make it available on tap. The next announcement relates to introduction of retail digital payment solutions in the offline mode. A scheme to test technologies that enable digital payments even in remote areas where internet connectivity is either absent or barely available was announced in August 2020. Given the encouraging experience gained from the pilot tests, it is now proposed to introduce a framework for retail digital payments in offline mode across the country. This will further expand the reach of digital payments and open up new opportunities for individuals and businesses. The next announcement relates to enhancing transaction limit for IMPS to rupees 5 lakh. Immediate Payment Service, that is IMPS, offers instant domestic fund transfer facility 24/7 through various channels. In view of the importance of the IMPS system and for enhanced consumer convenience, it is proposed to increase the per transaction limit from rupees 2 lakh to rupees 5 lakhs. The next announcement relates to geotagging of payment system touchpoints. Ensuring wider availability of payment acceptance infrastructure throughout the country has been one of the priority areas for financial inclusion. To target areas with deficient payment acceptance infrastructure, it is proposed to introduce a framework for leveraging geotagging technology for capturing exact location information on all existing and new payment acceptance infrastructure, that is point of sale, that is POS terminals, and quick response codes, that is QR codes. This would complement the Payment Infrastructure Development Fund PIDF framework of the Reserve Bank in ensuring wider geographical deployment of payment acceptance infrastructure. The next announcement relates to regulatory sandbox, and we are announcing a new theme for the next cohort, and we are also putting it the whole system of application on tap. The Reserve Bank's regulatory sandbox has so far introduced 3 cohorts, namely retail payments, cross-border payments and MSME lending, with a view to provide further impetus to fintech ecosystem. A 4th cohort on prevention and mitigation of financial frauds is being announced today. In addition, based on the experience gained and the feedback received from stakeholders, it is proposed to facilitate on-tap application for earlier themes for participating in the regulatory sandbox. This measure is expected to ensure continuous innovation in the fintech ecosystem of our country. The next announcement relates to review of Ways and Means advance limits and relaxation of overdraft facility for the state governments and the union territories. To help the states and union territories to manage their cash flows amidst continued uncertainties on account of the pandemic, it has been decided to continue with the interim enhancement of Ways and Means advance limits of rupees 51,560 crore for the states and union territories for a further period of 6 months, that is up to 31st March 2022. It has also been decided to continue with the liberalized measure, that is enhancement of the maximum number of days of overdraft in a quarter from 36 to 50 days and the number of consecutive days of overdraft from 14 to 21 days up to March 31st, 22. Priority sector, next announcement relates to priority sector lending, permitting banks to on-lend through NBFCs, continuation of this facility for some more time. Considering the increased traction observed in delivery of credit by NBFCs to the underserved and unserved segments of the economy, bank lending to registered NBFCs other than microfinance institutions for on-lending to agriculture, MSME and housing was permitted to be classified as priority sector lending. This facility, which was available from 13th August 2019 till September 30th this year, is being further extended for another 6 months up to 31st March 2022. And the final and the last announcement relates to internal ombudsman for NBFCs. The increased strength and reach of NBFCs across the country has necessitated various measures by the Reserve Bank for protection of customers of NBFCs. With a view to further strengthening the internal grievance redress mechanism of NBFCs, it has been decided to introduce the internal ombudsman scheme for certain categories of NBFCs having higher customer interface, and the circular as and when it is issued will spell out the details. It will be issued shortly. Let me now conclude and let me say as follows. If there is anything that the most trying and difficult past 18 months have taught us, it is to never doubt the indomitable human spirit which always rises to face mighty challenges. With our resilience and resolute commitment, we have learned to adapt, innovate and turn challenges to opportunities. As we further accelerate the pace of economic recovery, it is important not to rest in the glory of what has been achieved, but work tirelessly on what remains to be done. As Mahatma Gandhi, whose birth anniversary we celebrated last week, had said, to lose patience is to lose the battle. Thank you. Stay safe, stay well. Namaskar.